Controversy continues over a speed skater's claim of lack of support. 2 local football teams suspended from the league, and the Fed to continue keeping interest rates low.
Good evening. Should Hong Kong's first and only male Winter Olympian be given a team doctor? Well, that's the question the whole town is asking after speed skater Barton Lui expressed his frustration with the alleged lack of support he got at the Sochi Games. And it's thrown the issue of Hong Kong's sports politics into the spotlight. At the heart of the debate is the 20-year-old speed skater who returned to Hong Kong this morning from Sochi. Yesterday, Barton Lui complained about old injuries flaring up before a qualifying race in which he finished 5th. He expressed frustration there was no team doctor, also accusing Hong Kong Olympic Committee officials of showing up only when the media was interviewing him. Today, Lui was more reserved in his comments, saying that a team doctor was never officially applied for. He said it was suggested, but the Hong Kong Olympic Committee said there was a lack of quota. It's now thrown the makeup of the 7-person delegation to Sochi in the spotlight. Could anyone have been replaced by a team doctor instead? Apart from Lui, his coach, team leader Yip Siu Yin, the 4 other delegates took up administrative work, such as attending meetings and arranging lodging and transportation. Hong Kong Olympic Committee Secretary General Pang Chung insisted that every member on the team had designated duties. He also said the speed skating team was very late in confirming the final number of Olympic athletes. Delegation Chief Ronnie Wong suggested perhaps Lui was trying to find a way to ease the loss of his race. Lawmakers also waded in on the controversy.
I think it's very discouraging for any young people who might think about becoming a sportsman, becoming an athlete representing Hong Kong. It shows again and again that all those in charge of money, all those in charge of policy, all these people are management on the top. They focus very little on actually the true needs of the athletes.
Chan has requested the Home Affairs Bureau explain to lawmakers on the Home Affairs panel the delegates' exact duties in Sochi.
2 local football teams have been suspended from the league for the rest of the season. The decision was made after a Hong Kong Football Association special committee ruled the 2 clubs were no longer viable. Evelina Leung tells us more.
Happy Valley Athletic Association and Two Moon Sports Association, 2 First Division clubs under investigation for alleged match fixing. The Hong Kong Football Association announced today they will not be allowed to play for the rest of the season. The decision was reached after an ad hoc committee set up by the FA concluded both clubs have not provided evidence to prove they are viable football teams. It also found their governance and financial management had fallen below the standards of a professional football club and that their conduct is likely to have brought the game into disrepute. The FA added the matches played this season by these 2 clubs will also be void, which means the league will be recalculated to adjust for the change. However, the FA said it will try to help the affected players.
If any players have their contracts cancelled and they become unemployed, then obviously we want to help them as much as possible. So we're talking to some of the other clubs about maybe them being transferred to those clubs. Now, the problem we have at the moment is that there is actually a transfer window of 2 months, which is now elapsed. So we need to talk to FIFA and the AFC about getting dispensation to allow those players to sign for another club.
Sutcliffe says this is an extraordinary situation and called on the other clubs to be sympathetic and lenient so no players will have to be made redundant. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
LegCo's Public Accounts Committee has accused the government of being lax and evading responsibility over various issues. These include regulating roadside skips, the private recreational lease policy, and public rental housing policies. The committee is calling on the administration to come up with improvement measures immediately. Rani Samtani reports.
In its report last November, the Director of Audit said roadside skips not only obstruct the road, but have also led to a number of accidents. The Legislative Council's Public Accounts Committee report criticized government departments for neglecting its responsibility to regulate the roadside skips.
The Lands Department considered the placing of the roadside skips a road management issue, while the Transport Department considers it as a land issue. The committee expresses alarm and strong resentment and finds it totally unacceptable about the unrepentant attitude of the Transport and Housing Bureau to evade the responsibility for directing the Transport Department to take the lead in introducing a permit system.
The Audit Commission also found that many private sports clubs violated their leasing terms and conditions. But the Public Accounts Committee found it unacceptable that the Home Affairs Bureau only began its review of the private recreational lease policy last September, when the Legislative Council had urged the administration to do so in 2002. The committee recommended that the Home Affairs Bureau step up measures to regularly monitor private sports clubs. The committee also expressed dissatisfaction with the government for not providing information on the average waiting time for a public housing applicant to be allocated a unit. It also said that it was unacceptable that the administration had not implemented any measures to screen out ineligible applicants from the waiting list on a regular basis. The Public Accounts Committee pointed out that more than 110,000 applicants are on waiting lists for public rental housing. The committee is urging the administration to conduct a review of its well-off tenants policy to encourage these better-off tenants to vacate their flats. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council chief visited the tomb of Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the founder of modern China, in Nanjing today. The visit by Wang Yuqi and his delegation came a day after the mainland and Taiwan held their highest-level government talks since they split amid civil war in 1949. Wang is the first ever Taiwanese government official to visit the monument under a government title. Monday's talks in Nanjing marked a big step in expanding cross-strait dialogue beyond economic and trade issues. No formal agreements have been signed, but both sides say just the fact that they could meet as equals is progress. The mainland delegation said talks centered on Beijing's desire to see Taiwan ratify a trade services agreement that would allow a wider range of businesses in each other's territory.
The U.S. House of Representatives narrowly approved a one-year extension on federal borrowing authority without the bitter confrontations of last year that led to a 16-day government shutdown. Meanwhile, the head of the U.S. Federal Reserve Board told Congress the central bank would continue to keep interest rates low to help stimulate economic growth. Alan Booknia reports.
In her first public words since becoming the Fed chair earlier this month, Janet Yellen struck a note of unity with her predecessor, Ben Bernanke. Her message to the House Financial Services Committee: the economy is improving enough to withstand a tapering of the Fed stimulus program called quantitative easing, but it still needs the help of low interest rates.
We have made progress. Clearly, we have further to go. We're trying to promote a faster recovery and a fuller recovery, but I do see, and not only in terms of the number of jobs, but across a broad range of labor market indicators, I do think there's progress.
Yellen dropped no hints on how her leadership might depart from Bernanke's.
Probably at the margin, she'd be more willing to slow the taper if the economy were to show protracted weakness, because she believes that QE affects the jobs market and that QE works. There is no QE fatigue in her mind.
The stock market liked what it heard from Yellen, with all major indices in New York jumping 1%. Locally, the Hang Seng Index rose 1.5% to close at 22,285. Investors also breathed a sigh of relief after the U.S. House of Representatives approved a one-year extension of federal borrowing authority. Many Republicans caved into President Barack Obama's demand to allow the debt ceiling to increase without any conditions. Republicans were largely blamed for last year's standoff that led to a 16-day partial government shutdown. With congressional elections coming in November, they weren't willing to incur the public's wrath again. The measure is expected to pass through the Democrat-controlled Senate later this week. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
The president of France was the guest of honor at an opulent state dinner hosted by the U.S. president and the First Lady in Washington, D.C. And while the two leaders had plenty of praise for each other during the second day of François Hollande's state visit, there were also some frank discussions over recent friction between the two countries. James Aiken reports.
As social occasions in Washington go, this is as glitzy as they get. The biggest social event of Barack Obama's second term featured A-list celebrities and dignitaries, all of whom tactfully avoided any talk about l'affaire Hollande. There was some suspense about how the White House would handle the seating arrangements for Hollande, who had an abrupt and very public split from his longtime partner. The drama was put to rest by seating Hollande between the first couple. On the menu, ribeye steak and, like the day before, large portions of effusive praise.
To our friend and partner, President Hollande, to all of our friends from France who are here today, vive la France, God bless America, and long live the alliance between our great nations.
The tone was more serious and somber earlier in the day. Escorted by the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Hollande laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery in nearby Virginia. But there is also business to take care of during this state visit, and lately, business between the U.S. and France is very much about politics. Talks at the Oval Office centered on Syria, rising extremism in North Africa, and the Iranian nuclear negotiations. Then there is that sticky business about U.S. spying on its European allies.
We are committed to making sure that we are protecting and concerned about the privacy rights, not just of Americans, not just of our own citizens, but of people around the world as well.
We are making headway. Mutual trust has been restored, Hollande responded. With much of the glitz and ceremony now over, the two leaders now have more time to focus on projecting renewed ties. Recent difficulties are unlikely to chill this historically warm relationship for very long. James Aiken, TVB News.
Former Japanese Prime Minister Tomiichi Murayama, who's apologized for the suffering Japan caused to its neighbors during the Second World War, said the current government still has to honor the apology. Murayama was invited to speak in South Korea by the opposition Justice Party. In 1995, when he was Prime Minister, he issued the formal apology known as the Murayama Statement. The 91-year-old statesman accused current Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of flopping back and forth on the issue. A Japanese government spokesman said the Abe administration still respects the Murayama Statement. Ties between Japan and South Korea have been strained since Abe took office in late 2012.
Toyota has issued a recall for all 1.9 million of its third-generation Prius cars sold worldwide. The Japanese car maker said the cars have a software programming glitch in their hybrid system. Toyota says in some cases the hybrid system could shut down, causing the vehicle to stop, possibly while it is being driven. No accidents have been reported related to the defect. About half of the recalls are in Japan and more than 700,000 in North America. The Prius is one of Toyota's best-selling models and has become synonymous with the fuel-saving hybrid technology.
Australian customs authorities have seized 180 kilos of methamphetamine with a street value of $160 million. 5 people, including 4 from Taiwan, have been arrested. Customs officers discovered the drugs last week while inspecting a shipment of kayaks from China. Bags of meth were hidden in 19 of the 27 kayaks. Officials say the drug shipment is among the largest they have intercepted. Police arrested 3 men and a woman from Taiwan and an Australian man in Sydney yesterday. They face a maximum penalty of life imprisonment if convicted. And still to come in our news tonight. Welcome fine for breaching the Trade Descriptions Ordinance. Government sues an internet radio station for copyright infringement. And in local politics, New People's Party allies with civil force.